Hey team, $10 million Bitcoin sounds insane, but it wasn't that long ago that $40,000 Bitcoin sounded insane, and now it's just our boring reality. MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor thinks Bitcoin will reach $10 million. Here are 3 reasons he's right, and why it'll happen sooner than anyone expects. If you don't already know, Michael Saylor has an impressive history, and in the past 2 years, he's become maybe the most vocal and insistent advocate for Bitcoin as the future of money. Saylor launched MicroStrategy and took it public in the 90s. MicroStrategy is a software and business intelligence firm. They help companies analyze and make sense of market data and internal data. But a couple years ago, in August 2020, Saylor surprised the world when MicroStrategy made a $250 million investment in Bitcoin. The very first public company to make any investment, let alone one so huge. In the following months, others followed suit, including Tesla and Square. Today, there are dozens of publicly traded companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheets or some other direct exposure to the Bitcoin price. Saylor is a brilliant mind and not at all afraid to say what he's actually thinking. He has a history of understanding new technologies and networks well before other people, and he moves fast to take advantage of those new dynamics. That's what made him a billionaire. Saylor was recently on the Lex Fridman podcast in a 4-hour interview. Fridman and Saylor spent the last 2 hours talking about Bitcoin almost exclusively, and Saylor made some predictions about Bitcoin's future price.
What does that mean in terms of price per coin?
At 500,000, right? That's a $10 trillion asset. At 5 million, that's a $100 trillion asset.
So you think it crosses $1 million, it can go even higher?
Yeah, I think it keeps going up forever. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't go to 10 million a coin. Right? It's 100 trillion in bonds. There's 50 to 100 trillion in other currency derivatives. And these are all conventional use cases.
This isn't the only time Saylor has discussed the price of Bitcoin in recent history. At the Bitcoin 2022 conference in Miami on April 7th, Saylor sat down with ARK Invest CEO Cathie Wood. A little about her: she launched ARK Invest in 2014. It's an investment management fund that operates actively managed exchange-traded funds. Currently, ARK has just under $20 billion in assets under management. Wood also shared her prediction for Bitcoin's price.
We have a price target in 2030 for Bitcoin of more than $1 million per Bitcoin. And yeah, see, even you can't believe it. I expected a big roaring no, but and if you go in and you'll see how we build that case. In the 70s, it was real estate. In the 80s, it was emerging markets, 80s and 90s. And now I think it's going to be crypto starting with Bitcoin. And that's very important, starting with Bitcoin, because they understand what it is and what it's not. It's not a securities.
Obviously, price was very exciting, and it was a topic that people wanted to cover at the conference, with several sharing their thoughts from the main stage, including Mike Novogratz, CEO of Galaxy Investment Partners, a crypto-only investment fund. He pegs the price ceiling at $1 million.
How high is Bitcoin's price ever going to go?
$1 million.
It will never go over $1 million?
What
are you guys clapping about? That's the most bearish person here.
Predicting prices is a really complicated thing. So I got myself to $500,000 because that's the market cap of gold. I really do pray that the dollar stays strong and Bitcoin doesn't go to infinity, because Bitcoin going to infinity means the rest of the Western world has really fallen apart and we lose social order. But I think we could get to $500,000 or even $1 million with stability in the West. And so for us to get a lot higher than that, it means stability of the West is gone.
Novogratz was being interviewed there by Anthony Pompliano. You may know Pomp as one of Bitcoin's loudest proponents on Twitter, but he also runs Morgan Creek Digital, a hedge fund specializing in blockchain technology and digital assets. Pomp didn't make any price predictions at the Bitcoin conference. However, he did make a prediction about a year ago on the Lex Fridman podcast.
That next supply shock that'll carry us up over a $1 million Bitcoin price, which, if historical examples persist, and again, sometimes it's hard to use historical examples to look at future events, but if that happens, we would see $1 million of Bitcoin by the end of 2026.
Okay, so what do we have here? A bunch of people who deal with very large sums of money, who make it their job to understand where markets are headed and how long it'll take to see a return on investment. From Pomp saying Bitcoin at $1 million just 4 years from now, to Novogratz saying that we'll see $1 million, but that's the ceiling, no higher. Then there's Wood saying that we'll get to $1 million within 8 years. Then there's Saylor, the most laser eyes of them all, saying we'll get to $1 million. And then we'll get to 5 million, and then we'll get to 10, and really, there is no ceiling.
To infinity and beyond!
All bullish in the long term, some almost religiously so. What is driving their confidence? It's 3 things, and the last one might surprise you. First, institutional adoption. All of these people run institutions that are wielding billions of dollars. They're all early adopters, Saylor especially, and they can see the writing on the wall. Other institutional buyers are interested. They're asking them. They're wanting to learn more. And as Cathie Wood points out, it doesn't take very much of that institutional money to move the price quite a lot.
Institutional investors, all we expect over the next 8 years, that 2.5%, roughly 2.5% of assets, institutional assets, are allocated to Bitcoin. So we don't need a lot. And if it's more than that, and that's how institutional investors work, they tiptoe in.
Now, of course, not all institutional fund managers are there yet. We've talked about Ray Dalio before on this channel, arguably the most successful fund manager out there. He doesn't think Bitcoin will ever reach $1 million, and he shared that thought on, you guessed it, the Lex Friedman podcast.
1 million that some people talk about.
I don't think that's possible.
I think he's wrong. Just like I think he's wrong about China and the world reserve currency. But that's for another day. If you want that full story, click up here. Second reason Bitcoin will go to infinity and beyond, sovereign wealth funds. A sovereign wealth fund is an investment fund run by a country. Usually these come from countries that have a surplus from exports, like Scandinavian or Middle Eastern countries that are exporting oil, or Far Eastern countries that have manufacturing exports. To this point, sovereign wealth funds have invested in all kinds of things like stocks and bonds and precious metals, and they'll often allocate their funds to a fund manager like a hedge fund. But just as institutions are increasingly interested in Bitcoin, sovereign wealth funds will follow.
What about Bitcoin? Because Jamie Dimon's calling it a fraud. Do you agree?
No, I don't. I wouldn't agree in calling it a fraud. I would say again, time will tell. It could as well be, and it could as well not be. I think one has to be open-minded.
They want to grow their wealth across an array of asset classes, and at some point they have to turn their eye to the newest and most profitable asset class of the last decade. Novogratz talked about this from stage as well.
The adoption cycle is starting to hit breakout velocity, and we can see that because sovereign wealth funds are buying it now. Institutions are buying it. They're buying it for the same reason that individuals bought it 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Half the people in the audience probably bought it. They see an increasing possibility that populism will debase their currencies.
And wouldn't you know it, so did Michael Saylor.
The most likely thing to happen next is large acquisitions by institutional investors of Bitcoin as a digital gold, where they're just swapping out gold for digital gold and thinking of it like that. And the government entities most likely to be involved with that would be sovereign wealth funds. If you look at all the sovereign wealth funds that are holding big tech stock, equities, the Swiss, the Norwegians, the Middle Easterners, if you can hold big tech, then holding digital gold would be not far removed from that. That's a non-controversial adoption.
Finally, the third reason to expect Bitcoin's continual rise into the millions, and this is not one that all of these fund managers talked about, but Michael Saylor did, it's the ever-growing Layer 2 solution built on top of Bitcoin, the Lightning Network. You've probably heard of the Lightning Network, or maybe you know that it makes Bitcoin transactions fast and cheap. But I think it's important to realize the implications here. When Satoshi Nakamoto wrote the Bitcoin white paper, I don't think he was thinking about hedge funds or sovereign wealth funds. Bitcoin was originally envisioned as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, but Bitcoin Layer 1 as cash has been problematic for a very long time. And I should know, because I lived using nothing but Bitcoin for 3 months all the way back in 2013 for all expenses, gas, rent, groceries, insurance, travel, entertainment, you name it. And I gotta tell you guys, when I used self-custody Bitcoin and transacted on the Bitcoin blockchain directly, even in 2013 when there was far less traffic, it was not fast and it was not smooth. We ran into the same problem that we'd run into elsewhere, bad Wi-Fi. Something as simple as that made the transaction take 30 minutes.
The one guy from the bar comes here, pays with it, and I go to his bar and pay again with it. So, you know.
I tried sending it on my wallet, and it just says pending, and I couldn't find a way to cancel the transaction after we successfully did it on yours. I'm afraid as soon as I turn my phone back on, it's going to send him 0.2 Bitcoin.
Well, then we'll go get another tote bag, won't we?
Yeah, I just want my money back, though. This inability for Bitcoin to be fast and cheap enough to act as cash is what prompted a faction of the Bitcoin community to split off and launch Bitcoin Cash in 2017. This was a big deal in 2017. It was a civil war in the Bitcoin world, and the community lost some of its most long-standing vocal supporters at that point.
And your sock puppets.
I've never hired a single sock puppet. I don't need to be insulted. But please post this so the entire world can see how incredibly rude you are to me.
Flash forward to Bitcoin 2022 in Miami. There was a huge emphasis on the Lightning Network. One of the main sponsors, Cash App, announced new Lightning Network integration, allowing people to request payment in Bitcoin, which will help drive adoption. Then Jack Mallers, the CEO of Strike, announced that Shopify would integrate Lightning payments. That's 1.75 million merchants that can easily accept Bitcoin, fast, cheap, and easy. And Strike announced Lightning integration with NCR, the world's largest point-of-sale supplier. NCR runs payments for McDonald's, Walmart, Macy's, Circle K, Bed Bath & Beyond, Starbucks, Staples, Lowe's, Whole Foods, Walgreens, Chipotle, and many, many, many more. Then, again from the main stage, fintech innovator Peter Thiel, of all people, spoke about the difference between currency and money, something we've addressed on this channel before. Thiel made the argument that Bitcoin was the best money because of its limited supply, its widespread network making it difficult to attack, and the increasing interest and adoption from major institutions and governments, something others also noted. But he said something like Ethereum would be a better currency. Here's the thing, guys. I think Thiel doesn't know about the Lightning Network. If he did, there'd be no reason to be talking about Ethereum as currency, especially when transaction costs in ETH are insanely high, routinely running into the hundreds of dollars. How is that good currency? You can't buy small items. You can't even move money below a certain amount in your wallet. If you hold in your wallet less than the transaction cost of dozens or hundreds of dollars, guess what? It's stuck there. You're never going to move it. We in the Bitcoin community have been saying for a long time, Bitcoin fixes this about many of the world's problems. But what about the problems of the Bitcoin network? What about the actual challenges that Bitcoin faces? Well, I think we can now add to that saying, Lightning fixes this. Of course, Michael Saylor did not miss any of the importance of the Lightning Network.
Then I think the killer application in the world is going to be when 6 billion people, maybe 8 billion people, when your 3-year-old's got it. When 8 billion people run around with a mobile phone, with an Android or iOS app, and they've got a Lightning wallet, and that wallet has got some BTC in it as a store of value, and it's got some USD or Euro or CNY or whatever as a medium of exchange. And then you're going to see tens of trillions and then hundreds of trillions of dollars all moving on Lightning rails secured by the Bitcoin network. And then people are going to wake up and realize, holy crap, this stuff really is going to change the world.
What do you think, guys? Will we see $10 million Bitcoin? And when? A lot of us were expecting to see Bitcoin hit 100K last year, and we were totally wrong. But time is on our side. When will we hit 100K, a million, 10 million? Comment below, let me know your guess. And if you learned something new, go ahead and hit that like button, tap the bell icon to get notified of future videos, share this channel with your friends who are or will soon be orange-pilled, and let me know what you'd like to hear in future videos. Thanks, team.